Hey everybody, Brian Von VA here. How's everyone doing today? Tell me in the comments below, let me know how you're doing. Make sure you get some water while you're at it too, because we got another doozy here. Players of Reddit. What is the edgiest, most cringy character you have made or seen? Was it made out of irony? Part 1. First year of college, my friends and I learned to play D&D 3.5. It was all our first TTRPG, but a mutual friend had heard us all talking about it and offered to run a newbie campaign for us. He was really awesome, and we all had a blast overall. The first characters we made were basically self-inserts, which our DM said was pretty common. And while I enjoyed my half-elf ranger, by the time we hit 5th level, I had gotten the hang of the system. I was ready to cast off this character and make a much better one. Now, it being late in 3.5, 4th edition was already playtested and may have even come out already. We had access to all the books. That particular DM had bookshelves full of stuff all the way back to AD&D, and I was ready for some really specific niche stuff. Multi-classing in Fighter and Swashbuckler, I took my 5th level in Dervish. Now, mechanically, I still marvel at how much the system let you get away with, and everything was made by the book. In hindsight, it was the personality of the character I cringe at now. I made him this really haughty, dread pirate Roberts type, who always had something to say about how he could have done it better. He fought with dual scimitars that he had connected with a chain. Yes, that's right, I made sword nunchucks awesome. He always had some sardonic comment to make in his nasally British-esque accent. And anytime he spoke, our rogue's player would just shake her head and say, "Man, he's such a dick." It didn't help that I have crazy dice luck, so actually succeeded at almost everything I tried to do, making his gloating even worse. After the game fell apart due to the DM's schedule suddenly exploding, we all remained very good friends, and I even ended up playing with a few of them in other groups. After the game was over, our rogue said she really wanted me to come to my senses and make a less dickish character, as she wanted to punch me every time the character spoke. I was defensive at the time, but in hindsight, she was super right. Of course, years down the road, we got to play another game together, Pathfinder, yes! And she told me about all the bullshit she and other women have to go through in other game groups, which I'd unfortunately learned about too, so she wouldn't mind if I played that type of character again. I just smiled at her and showed her my character sheet. Mute Oracle. I had some cases in D&D, but nothing too much serious. But there was this time I was playing a game that is the same genre as D&D, Adventurers Killing Monsters, The Last Torch, which is a roleplay game always about adventuring and killing monsters, but on average low power compared to D&D, where I saw such an egregious case that I would have flipped out even if it was on D&D. I was playing on Discord with some people, some known, some not, playtesting an adventure for a member of the community. One of his friends wanted to play a homebrew race, and we were really all fine with that. It's a half-scorpion human. Well, okay. That's weird, considering in the game the playable races are humans, dwarves, and elves, but at least it's exotic. It's a paladin. Oh, okay, is very good. Paladins in that setting are more honor-bound and respectable people, so it can leverage being an exotic and apparently dangerous-looking race by being a member of a well-welcome community. I am called Dude, the Dark Sun. I am actually not a paladin of the light, but of a different faith that is tied to it. My symbol is a darkened sun. My powers amid a sort of dark light. I got my powers after having been abandoned by my clan and having fought against my master that then took me in. My weapon is a lance that is made to resemble a scorpion. Okay, either he was a troll or a lost case, I thought. Well, let's give him a chance, I thought. He kept always for himself or bossing around, talked all the time in first person with a menacing attitude, talking cryptic. He took such a dark turn that for a moment I thought he wanted to threaten to poison the well to a village we were in to get information about a mission we were sent to do, and I interrupted abruptly the discussion they were doing to cut it off from that. It turned out it wasn't the case, as I explained myself. This led him to have a bad impression of me, rightfully, and they gave me a bit of a cold shoulder all the time. I also questioned the guards if they thought he was strange, but for some odd reasons they were perfectly fine with it. Despite being a small village that has seen mostly humans and maybe dwarves in a world where his race is so exotic and dangerous and belongs to a faith that is pretty much heretic. The other players, however, suffered his presence in silence or ignored him. Yeah, the group wasn't stellar at all, and that somehow made it better. We completed half of the session and did not go for the next one. There was shallow communication, and I did not suffer it much really. The DM was a chill one. I played with him again in the future. Pathfinder campaign. We were playing the Horde of the Dragon Queen adventure path. One of the PCs was an Eldritch Knight who had made a deal with, drumroll please, bing, the King in Yellow, aka Hastur from the Cthulhu mythos. He was granted great power, access to warlock spells, in exchange for a particular PC's soul. At one point, some lizard men were attacking the abandoned castle we were using as a refuge. Our Eldritch Knight and the target PC snuck out of the castle to try and sneak behind and ambush the lizard men, while the rest of the party attacked head-on. Classic pincer attack. Suddenly, the Eldritch Knight cast Hunger of Hadar on the battlefield. It nearly wiped out the lizardmen. Unbeknownst to everyone else, it also caught the target PC. Thing is, the spell not just completely deleted the PC's body, but his soul as well. With no soul to claim, the King in Yellow took the Eldritch Knight's soul as punishment for his failure. So we ended up with an Eldritch Knight that interacted with the party as normal, but had no soul and no memory of what happened. And nobody in our group was ever the wiser. My cringiest character came from a lack of prep, to be honest. I wanted to make a desert druid in an alternate history campaign. Druids had to be true neutral. So when I made up the character, I thought of what the most neutral backstory could be. For some reason, I decided he was an affluent businessman who got lost in the desert on a journey. He basically hatcheted himself to survival, oh good reference, and fell in love with wandering the desert. When I finally made his way back to the city, he told his wife and kids that he would be leaving them everything and basically sending them welfare checks as he spent the rest of his days wandering the desert. This was my idea of true neutral. He was putting what mattered to him most at the moment first, and letting everyone else live their own ways. He helped people who were lost, but other than that, he mostly worked everything out on his own. After I made this character, we got into role-playing, and I realized I had forgotten to give him a name. In panic, I named him Set, after the evil god of desert storms, and just said his parents had a cruel sense of humor. He ended up playing with almost no personality aside from helping the other PC he'd met on the sole basis of that PC giving him alcohol and a place to rest. I want to go back and recreate a character like this, but desert druids really aren't much of a thing in 5th edition, other than a Fire Genasi desert land druid, which has none of the flavor I'm looking for. Elren Ansel has a long and storied history spanning 40 pages of notes. He was a white dragonborn born of a cult of racist white dragonborns. The cult disbanded, but Elren was still mistreated by his parents for his scale color and forced to be perfect in order to appease them. Later in life, his parents would try to reconcile with, but by then, he had already obtained a hatred for the world and his denizens. He worked as a mercenary for years, obtaining a reputation as an edgy bastard who did good work. Eventually, his work found him fighting an astral dragon alongside a mage and almost dying when his cord to the material plane was cut. But his mage friend instead reattached the cord to her own soul. He was then sent back down to the mortal world. From here, he began his journey as an amnesiac first-level barbarian. Once I made as a big bad evil guy the edgiest and most annoying NPC ever. I unfortunately didn't have the chance to play him and don't really have a stat block for him, but I made some annoying homebrew abilities for him. So here's the NPC. Darksaber, Lord of the Edge County. He is a pale half-elf with abyssal powers, Hexblade Warlock. He only wears open black leather jackets with nothing underneath and tight black leather pants with spikes coming out of the waist and the ankles. On his chest, he has a tattoo of a black sword, and that's where he extracts his greatsword from. Every time he does that, he takes 1d10 of damage. He can use the greatsword with only one hand because he is that awesome. He also has a useless companion called Krillin. The fight with him should have gone like this. First, the PCs would have met him, and he would have gone on a monologue where he explained why the PCs couldn't defeat him and hinted at his tragic backstory. Roll initiative. For the first half of the fight, he would only use Dark Rays, Eldritch Blast, and unarmed attacks, but if he was brought to half hit points, he would jump high in the sky, Dragon Ball style, and say something like, "I didn't want to do this, but you left me no choice." And Krillin would say, "Gasp, you really made him angry. He is using his special technique." Then he would extract his sword, taking d10 damage, and continue the fight using the greatsword and Dark Rays. When he was left with 20 or less HP, he would spam Fireball, but of course, is the Sphere of Dark Powers. And every time he would use it, Krillin would say, You can't use that much power all at once!" Or something like that, growing ever more worried every time Darksaber would use the Sphere of Dark Powers. When he was defeated at 0 hit points, he would say, "This was a waste of time. Come on, Krillin, let's go home," and would teleport to the Shadow Realm. Finally, his home brews and other quirks. Once for every PC, when that PC rolled a nat 1 against him, Darksaber would teleport behind the PC, say, "Nothing personal, kid," and punch him really hard. When Darksaber had the sword, he would lose this ability. If Krillin was killed, 10 HP, but wasn't participating in combat, Darksaber would scoff and say, "You shouldn't have done that. Now you've made me really angry." Rise in the air, extract his sword, 1d10 damage, and make a sweeping sword attack towards whoever killed Krillin. If the attack missed, Darksaber and the PC would remain clashing swords, or whatever the PC has, and Darksaber would say, "You did me a favor. Krillin was slowing me down anyway." At the end of the fight, Krillin would get resurrected. Whenever he was dealt more than 10 damage in one attack, he would say, "So this is the true power of," either the thing he was attacked with or the class of the attacker. The end. He was made for a level 5 party with a cleric, so I think his damage dealing was balanced by his poor HP. Also, if the fight was going bad for the PCs, I could nerf Darksaber on the spot or make him go away saying, "This was a waste of time. Let's go, Krillin. I want a real challenge." Or something edgy like that. Hey everyone, it's Brian Vaughn, VA, checking in after the vid again. Make sure to leave a like, subscribe, and ring that bell to get notified when we post or go live. Do you have a story you'd like us to read out? Make sure to head on over to our subreddit r/MrRipper and pop it in over there. Also, be sure to follow us on Twitch and Twitter alike, links are in the description below. Using a help action, you can be sure to stop by my YouTube channel as well, Brian Vaughn VA, where I stream games and dish out some lovely voice acting videos. And if you have a D&D character you'd like me to voice, send it my way and I'll voice it on my channel too. Always want to end things on a positive. I just want to say, even the cringiest of characters might actually be kind of cool in concept. So don't let people around you say what's cringy and what's not. You'll know deep down inside if you've made some super edgelord or not. But even still, use your imagination, because that cringy ass character might be the best character in the whole damn game. Don't let anyone tell you otherwise. All the love, everybody. We will see you next time. Bye for now.